So public school system has grown. In fact, in the Declaration of Independence, when Texas was separating from Mexico, actually one of the things that they separated for was they didn't believe that Mexico had a proper education system for the students. So our founders always understood that we need a public school system because not everyone has access to quality homeschooling. Today, not everyone has the money for private schooling. So even then they understood that, but our founders understood that our education system should be wide open for parents to make a choice, and it should be a hybrid of many things. But it took us a long time to get there. Again, it took us until the late 80s and 90s to have homeschooled. Then it took to the late 90s to have charter schools. And so now we're at the last leg of the stool for quality education. And that is pure parental school choice for private schools. Charter schools have been a big success. In fact, they were such a success in my last session in 2013 as education chair, we finally passed a bill for the first time in over a decade to expand the charter schools. And why? Because we had over 100,000 people on the wait list and there were no opportunities. Today, even with the expansion of charter schools, the demand is so high that we still have about 140,000 estimated parents waiting for an opening. 33,000 or so of those people are right here in the Houston area. There aren't enough seats yet, but we're growing. So let's talk about private schools for a minute. We have 250,000 roughly. I know reporters are here, so they'll pin me down to the exact number. Well, you were actually off by 1,000. We're making a point here. We have roughly 250,000 in private schools, 300,000 in charter schools, and that's out of the approximate 6 million we have in public schools. So we have about 5.4 million or so in public schools. The rest are private and homeschooled. So we have about 6 million kids. So you see it's a small percent in the big scheme of things, about 1 out of 7 who opt out of a public school. It's a small percent of a regular traditional public school. They either opt for public charter or a private school or homeschool. 1 out of 7. That means 6 out of 7 are either happy, and we have many good schools. My wife was a school teacher out here in Cy-Fair, not far from here as a matter of fact, and in Katy. We have a lot of great schools. We have 8,500 campuses, 6 million students, as I said, about 1,200 school districts, over 325,000 teachers. So when you have a system that big, even if you have a smaller system, there is going to be, some teachers that don't quite make the grade, and schools that don't make the grade. So of those 6 out of 7 parents who are sending their children to public schools, traditional public schools, are they all happy? Most are. But are some trapped in failing schools? Absolutely. And what rights do they have? What rights do they have? Let's pose a question. And I know this is a school choice crowd, but let me just pose this question. Would anyone in here raise your hand if Senator Bettencourt or Senator Taylor introduced a bill next session to outlaw parents from sending their children to private school if they can pay for it? Would anyone support stopping a parent from sending their child to private school if they can pay for it? No one, right? I'd like to be in a room full of superintendents and see how many hands. Of course we would. So the argument is not on choice. The argument is not on choice. We've already crossed that line. We're okay with choice. You can homeschool. You have a choice of a charter if you can get in. And if you have the money, you can send your child to private school. So we already have choice. The argument is over, do we give choice equally and fairly to every parent? That's the argument. That's the debate. And I say it's the civil right of every parent to have that choice. Just because they can't write the check, we take that away from them? So it's okay for this parent because they can write the check, but it's not okay for this parent because they can't. Is that what Texas wants to stand for? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. And we know from the wait list of charter schools that 61% of those parents say if they had private schools as an option, they would take it. but they don't have the money. Well, then we get into this argument. Well, Dan, but if you give the money to parents to take their children out of public schools and go to a private school, you're going to take money out of public education. I love this debate. Because explain to me how that works. Just explain to me how that works. If we have a student sitting in this seat, the state pays about $8,500 to that student. We spend about a little under 50% of our total budget in education, plus local property taxes. That money goes for that student in that seat. Stacy, would you be a student for a moment? Stacy Hawk, everyone. Stacy. So Stacy's a student, okay? Guess what? Her dad just got a job in North Carolina. So Stacy, you're gone. You're in school in North Carolina. Do we pay this school to teach Stacy anymore? No, because she's not there. Come back, Stacy. I want to keep you busy here. So we haven't taken any money from education, right? Because Stacy's not there. Okay, now Stacy's parents hit the lottery. And they can send her to the best private school there is. Bye-bye, Stacy. Do we pay the school for that student? No. Stacy's not here. Stacy, come back. Stacy's dad didn't get a job in North Carolina, and her parents didn't hit the lottery. In fact, her mom and dad are out of work. Times are tough. She doesn't have much money. But she's in a really poor performing school with a long history and a high dropout rate. And the state of Texas says we have an education savings account for her parents. And they can take that money and send Stacy to any school that they wish that's within the parameters of the metrics of that system and the dollars that flow into that private school. So Stacy's parents decide, I'm going to take my ESA scholarship. Bye, Stacy. You can go back and sit in your real seat now. And we're going to send her to private school. Now, did the school lose any money in any of those three cases? It did lose the funding for her, but they don't have to teach her. So, explain to me, for all the educators, what difference it makes for the reason Stacy left the chair in the classroom. Because if the argument is a student who gets an ESA to go to a private school paid for by the state, because it is the public's money, the state doesn't have any money, it's the public's money. It just goes through our hands to various programs. If the state and the school district says, oh yeah, of course she can move with the parents to North Carolina, of course pay the library, she can go to private school. But, oh, she can't leave and take education money. The argument does not hold up. It wouldn't hold up before reasonable people, logically thinking through it. It wouldn't hold up in a court of law. But unfortunately, it holds up for some people in the legislature who don't understand that this is the most basic right of a parent to have choice for their student. We are behind the curve in Texas for a state that is the leader on so many issues. Not having school choice puts our students at a disadvantage and our parents at a disadvantage. You know, 13